Okay, hold on a second. Hey guys.
Hey.
Oh, I have no audio. There we go. Now I have audio. I'm gonna run up and grab a cup of coffee real quick. Feel free to start without me. Yeah, I just was a little late. I'll be right back.
Tommy, how are you?
Tyler, I'm great, man. How you doing?
Good. Really busy right now.
Really?
Yeah, we're doing this series called On Location, and the whole thing is video-based messages.
Yeah.
And so that is fallen to me and my team to finish. But we decided this year to do it all over the place. So one was in West Virginia, one was in Tennessee. I got back from Tennessee yesterday.
Wow.
There's been a lot of traveling and filming, which is fun.
Yeah.
There's always a Sunday coming, so trying to catch up a little bit.
That's awesome.
Good stuff.
That's so
though.
cool. Cool. Yeah. I don't think we've slowed down. We're just ramping back up. We're through Christmas, but it's
It never really slows down.
No.
Tyler, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Tommy, I don't think I've met. I'm Eric Elder from Eastview in Illinois.
Hi, Eric. I'm Tommy. I'm with Church on the Rock over in St. Louis, or right outside St. Louis.
Oh, great.
I say St. Louis because nobody knows probably the town I live in.
What is the town?
St. Peter's.
Oh, yeah. Is that right by Florissant or Ferguson? Those?
We're 30 minutes from there.
Oh,
Yeah.
30 minutes, right. Okay.
But
Great. Jennifer, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Thanks.
Running a minute or two behind today, but that's okay.
Jen, do you know how many people we're expecting?
Huh?
You know how many people we're expecting on the call?
Yeah, let me look. It says 19 going, so probably half that. So let's say like 8. But I'd anticipate anyway.
I think that sounds about right.
Everyone always has good intentions.
I don't see your face, Ellen, but I see a name.
Oh, yeah.
And you're muted.
Owen's just here to listen.
He wants us to know that he's here, but he's not going to participate. So much truth to how truth attenders are in that statement. So.
Right.
On the back of the balcony, just watching.
I'm going to post in the group and tell everybody to hurry up and get on.
Yeah, you're in my ears now. It's so much easier. I say we give them one more minute and then we start. It can just be us. Everyone's always late. Making sure I don't have any messages from anybody. I think last time I had 2 or 3. Nope. Oh, good call, Tyler.
If that draws anybody in.
That's right. I know, that's why I posted this morning. I almost forgot.
I still have such a hard time figuring out time zone differences, and it makes me feel so dumb. It's like 1 hour difference.
Yeah.
Every time I'm like, I'm gonna be wrong.
Yeah. I'm scheduling a lot of calls with East Coast right now, and I'm constantly having to do okay, that would be what time again? Yeah. And I bought a tool to help me so I could send availability to people. And it's not changing out of my time zone, so people are still scheduling.
It's just so super confusing.
Right. I'm like, no, this is supposed to be easier, really.
I jumped on a call with a church from Texas this morning, and then this is in Central. The other one was not in Central.
Oh.
I haven't been on Eastern time all day, so.
Yeah. Hey, Sarah. I say it is 11:05. If people are not here yet, they are out of luck. Or they'll just join whenever they get here.
All right. Well, first thing I would like to do is open it up to talk about anything that you guys would like to talk about. So, if there's anything that is going on in your ministry or anything you have questions about that is of you to ask now.
I can jump in. I just to give you an update on last month. We talked about our Christmas campaign to buy coats, and the year before we put a link out, and we had 1 coat came in, and last year, this just a month ago, we had 770 coats came in through the online, through Amazon, through the online links. And that was we had about 788 more coats this year than last year out of 3,900.
That's awesome.
So our local outreach was saying, they attribute the additional growth to just the online ability to buy online. But I thought it was interesting, the numbers, it was about the same number of coats. Did I say 770? It was 570. 570 and 588 out of the 3,900 that came in through the door. But just that some people think that online is going to cannibalize your in-person experience, but it really just expands the reach of what we can do. And, it seemed to tap into a lot of people who just didn't participate before because they don't go to the store and buy coats for little girls. But if they can click a button on Amazon, it's a lot easier. So I just shared that with our staff yesterday, and even one of the departments was very encouraged, and we had a meeting later in the day that said, we've been worried about not streaming our junior high and high school services because we want people to come on campus. We're afraid the kids will stay home. And he said, when you shared that story, I thought, maybe we're just going to reach more people than before. So it's not news to us, but sometimes the practical examples help people to say this is valid, it's helpful, and it really reaches people that can't be reached in other ways.
Yeah. What was that website again? Because you shared it last time, and it was really amazing how you had set that up.
If it's still up, it was eastview.church/imagine. We bring coats and toys and.
Eric, I love that so much. I love everything about that. I'm looking at the website right now.
Can we put that in the chat? Hi, everybody.
Sure.
I'm here.
Welcome, Angela. Welcome, Vince. Yeah, it was such a great idea to me because oftentimes people will ask me to donate or to bring things, but I don't know what to donate. The way you did it with buy this one in this size eliminated a lot of that decision point.
It was a big difference from last year, too, where we just put a link to Amazon and a link to Walmart and said, go buy a coat. But this year we put wish lists together, specific by this coat, this size, this price. We have 10, we need 20, and it was very clear. People just click, they knew what they were doing. And
Yeah.
so I think you're right. That really was a win.
So for those of you who just jumped on, all we're doing right now is if you have anything that you have any questions about, like you think anybody else could help with, or if you've done something really cool like what Eric and his team did and like to share that. We have a couple of things that we are going to get into here in a little bit, but to start off, just basically kind of going around the horn with updates and questions and concerns and all that good stuff.
And I had one other thing that I need help with, so I don't want to dominate, but if I jump in now, then maybe I'll.
There you go.
So we decided to land on a title for our campaign for people to invite their friends to watch online. So rather than invite them to church, just give them a business card and say, here, why don't you watch our live stream and just check us out. And so we're going to call it Eastview Anywhere, sort of nods to Tyler and Church Anywhere and various other places that do that. But so we've created some business cards. I don't know if I share my screen, I can put them up on the screen, and then a little 25-second video that we could play on social media that people could invite their friends. But I wonder if I just showed you those. I'm going to present them to our leadership team in 2 weeks, and just if you have any other suggestions or ideas for how we can get people to, we're going to plan to distribute these things on a Sunday morning service, and to our people in person and say, here, take 5 or 10 cards and carry them in your wallet and hand them out at the restaurants or at the gas station or your mechanic or your friend or your neighbor. So I don't know if you've done this or just how we can do it better and how I can get to them in a better way.
Yeah, and you should be able to share. Do you have permissions to share? Otherwise, yep, perfect.
There's that one. And then let's. Sorry, I wasn't quite right. I just renamed the files before I got on. So this is the front of the business card.
Looks good.
And you'll notice the little handwriting on the top. We're going to try to encourage people, like if you're at the restaurant and your waitress's name is Jeanette, you say Eastview is for, and you just write Jeanette there. And you can leave a card, or Eastview is for you, if you don't know their name, or somehow. And then the back of it would just have more, how they can connect and that it's live, and they can also do the playback during the week.
Good.
And then a little video that we'd like to put on social media. Play here. So that's just the basic idea, but I'm trying to think what else we could include in the campaign. It's really sort of a word of mouth campaign. Although we've had some contact with the local theaters, have wondered if we have anything we'd like to use to, before movies play, and we could do something like this, or a more, personal person inviting them just to click the link and watch, or just to watch. And then also our local TV stations just came to us this week. One of them is a member at our church and said, hey, could we do a 15-second spot on Sunday mornings and say, just watch our live stream. So I haven't figured that out much at all. I haven't done local media, but overall, I'm just trying to think any other ways or how.
I love the movie theater idea. We did that last year for Easter.
You did.
And it worked really well.
is that like a 30-second come watch or come to the service or watch online?
It was a watch online, but it was also Avengers Endgame theme because that came out the same week as Easter. So it was a play on that. But I think it worked. We had several people say that they saw it during like the chat and things like that.
That's really smart. Okay. Yeah, I hadn't thought of theming it to go with a movie release. Great idea.
Yeah, has anyone else done something like this?
I can stop sharing.
I've not done the business card. I love that idea though. We do invite cards for like sermon series and stuff, but that's to get people like to come to the building. So I love the idea of an online one.
Yeah.
It's funny, I just printed some on cardstock this morning just as a sample to take to this meeting, and another guy was walking in the office. He's like, "Oh yeah, I always give cards to people, and I give my card, and then I write this website." I'm like, "Oh, we're thinking of making these cards," and he's like, "Oh, can I take some of those right now?" I'm ready. Like, "Oh, they're not approved by graphics yet," but people seem to want them. I mean,
that's good.
Yeah.
I think the back of a business card is a great idea. We had something like that where you have because people ask for your business card and then the back, which will change. But it just tells about us. We're totally online. I think it's brilliant to have something people could give. And what we've used online, for instance, Easter, ours says Easter for everyone from anywhere at any time.
Can I say that again?
Easter for everyone from anywhere at any time. And then, or church for everyone, same thing. So you could just fill that in, replace Easter, whatever you're doing.
Okay.
Church, community, Easter, Christmas. But I like the intentionality of what you're doing a lot. And so it's encouraging me to keep going on that. And that's a book, actually. Anyone, anywhere, anytime. I don't know if you know that.
No.
Yeah. If I had it on my desk, I would share it. I think I have it up. If I find it, I'll put it in the comments. How about that? But I love that. Bravo. And you have so many options for people. And I just think it's just the power of being totally on Facebook. That's what we do. I see such incredible power for the local church to build their community. And we talked about, for instance, Eric, when you were talking about buying the coats, because I've been part of online community for so long, now, 3 years, I feel like it feels the same as in person. I meet people like Jennifer and I had been working together for 2 years. And when I actually saw her in person, it was like, have we really not met in person? It just felt so. I mean, we do podcasts together. We so we pray together. We do all the things we do in person. And I think, this virtual reality that we live in now is really breaking those barriers. I also see the vulnerability that it builds quickly in people online. And so I don't think our churches should be afraid of having online, because people can come and be a little bit anonymous. And then they see you're not weird. They see you're teaching the Bible. They see that you love them where they're at. They see that you're for them, just like God is for them. And they keep coming back. And then they invite their friends because it's a trusted place. Or if they miss, a whole month because they went to their kids' soccer games instead of coming to church, you're still saying online, I care about you. You mean something to our community. Please come back. It's not this from the pulpit, I can't believe that you chose soccer over church. Mm. So there's a lot of power in it. And so I'm glad that you're leveraging that. It's super encouraging to me.
Thanks. Where are you, Angela?
I live in Seattle, Washington.
Okay.
Just outside. But our church is Pursuit Church Live on Facebook. That's our main platform. We're the first social media church approved by the Assembly of God.
That's cool.
It's cool. Yeah, it's been an adventure. We didn't start out thinking we would just do Facebook, but there's really no reason to do anything else, because that 90% of traffic goes to our website through Facebook.
Great.
There you have it. So thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else have anything they'd like to share or ask questions about, all that good stuff? Cool. Okay, so I'm gonna put a link to a blog post. Maybe some of you guys have already seen it, but I would love to talk through how we can take the stuff in the blog post and apply it to online environment. So I'm posting it right now in the comments. Came out last week. Kerry Newhoff does this every year, where he'll do like insert amount of disruptive church trends.
I am in a meeting with other online people, but I'm muted.
He's not.
If you need
He is now. I muted him.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's
So yeah, did everybody see that in the comments there?
I'm gonna mute myself now.
Okay, so take a second and look over that, and let's kind of talk through this. All right, so the first one on there, content-based attendance will decline, movements, moments, and missions will grow. The line that really stuck out to me in this blog was, let me find it. You can't create powerful moments, but you can facilitate them. I think a lot of us in an online environment, Angela might be a little different because hers is only online. So, but a lot of us online really rely on the moments that we create within our weekend experiences. And so if those are really intentional to reach the online audience, that's great, but most of the time they aren't. So what are some ways that we can create, like facilitate these moments of memorability, facilitate movements online, and then how can we do missions online?
I think one of the hardest things for me, because I look at multiple church onlines, is that I feel like so many just repackage what they're already doing, and they don't take advantage of the medium we have through the internet. And so like that's one of the things where I see Angela doing something very different, where she has small groups online, she's got prayer time online. I don't see a lot of church onlines who are really intentionally using the medium in those ways. A lot of them are streaming and just repackaging what's happening in the campus, hoping that it will do engagement and will create this conversation piece.
Yeah, I agree. And if this is going to be a big trend, it's going to disrupt physical campuses within the next year and beyond. That's only going to heighten in an online environment, I would assume.
Yeah. And I think a lot of us are asking those questions, right? Like, how do we get out of the box of just repackage what's on physical campus and turn it online? And so we're starting to try things like Church Anywhere is one of those, right? And it's, I've broken the mold, and now it's, you can do Church Anywhere with people gathered together. You don't have to be part of our physical community, but you're an extended part of it.
Yeah. It
sends a different kind of message to me.
What do you guys think? Do you have any ideas on how to break the mold beyond what we currently do? Super talkative group today. Holy moly.
I think it's hard to break with tradition. We tend to go back in patterns, just like we do with our thought process, into patterns of way of being. It's comfortable, it's easy, we can copy it. So it's very challenging to do something new, to do something different. Even when I started something that had never been done before, it was very easy for me to fall back in the traditional structure of church. And it didn't fly, really, because that's not, people are like, they could go to their church website that they've already gone to and find the traditional things. So I still am wrestling with that every day, like testing new things. I also have a very fluid creative structure where I could change something overnight. I don't have to go through my board. I don't have to, if it's not working, we change it. So it's kind of going back to starting just from the beginning of how are people responding to the Word of God right now? What are their biggest needs online? Like, for instance, Stephen Frerick said his number one video and post was about worry. So how do you hone into those needs of what people need? And then when you love them, they will keep coming back, so I think it's a struggle.
In the last year, Jen, you and I have talked about this a bunch, but the biggest thing that's changed for our online ministry is switching to more of a felt needs-based approach when it comes to relationships. So using our Google Ad Grant money to drive people towards felt needs videos. Like yesterday, I had one person say they watched a video that was on forgiveness, and their question to us was, how do you forgive someone who murdered your son? Like, that's a heavy topic that they're probably not going to walk into a church building and ask. And so, like, she's right. We have a medium that allows people enough distance from human interaction to be comfortable asking those types of questions. We just have to figure out the best way to utilize that.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah. I think the other thing that's really hard, like when things are content based, it's easy for us to put the content out. When things become movement based or moment based, it's harder to anticipate that. Like, right, movements are things that happen almost organically. And so when you start getting traction on something, it tends to grow outside of the scale that you anticipated it and that you were able to control it and plan for. So it's interesting to me to see, like, with Church Anywhere, I'm curious, how are you handling that growth and kind of anticipating for every community is a little bit different, I'm sure, in your Church Anywhere, and the problems they're solving or the problems they're addressing change. So you have to be very nimble and very quick to change or change direction.
Yeah. So the analogy that we use is that because we want so badly to empower people to follow what their passion is, so their cause, movement, whatever you want to call it, that will look completely different across the board. So we don't want it to become like a marsh. Like, we don't want everything to be like stagnant water. It has to continually be a stream moving forward. Even if that stream is massive and one person can't manage it, like, it still has to be a stream. It can never become a marsh. So right now what we've done is partnered individual coaches with each individual leader. So there's not like there's one overall vision, but multiple plans for each spot. Does that make sense? So if there's something that we didn't anticipate coming, then we can adjust very quickly for that because they have a specific coach for them.
Yeah. Is anyone else doing something similar to that? Oh, Eric, you're still muted.
I apologize. Somebody walked up and I hit my mute button, so I couldn't hear any of you, but I forgot to hit my mute button, so you couldn't hear me. But anyway, thanks for turning me off.
Yeah.
I just found out I'm supposed to present at an elders meeting. I didn't know I was going to, so.
Oh, cool.
Now I've lost my thought. Were you talking about the coaches, pairing coaches? Is that what your question was?
Yeah. Have you created like an infrastructure to do something like that, or?
I haven't, but I like the idea of encouraging people to use their giftedness or their particular connections. Two of our most successful online Bible studies last fall, we tried putting people together in random groups where they just signed up but our best ones were, a school teacher who just invited her school teacher friends, and they were all special needs teachers, and they all, and they all of a sudden had a dozen people doing a Bible study all together, and then another woman who's, a stay-at-home mom with young kids, and so she just posted on Facebook, anybody want to go through the study with me? And she had like 30 people signed up, whereas, we were trying to match people up, and it felt very forced trying to get people to do it. But I think if we can encourage people more to use their giftedness, their circles, they can use us as a springboard, sermon topics or themes, series, but but I hadn't thought of actually coaching people, saying we'll provide some coaching too and maybe I didn't catch exactly what you said, Tyler, but just how you can do some of this. And
Sure. Well, yeah, in the individual coaching, I think just allows for, you have to have some kind of structure like that if you're going to just turn people loose.
It's it gives you a customized way and a structure to it. So I hadn't thought of that coaching idea.
And it'd be a similar thing to like if you got a personal trainer. Each workout would not be the same for each person that gets a personal trainer, but you still need that trainer. That's kind of how we view it.
Yeah, I like that.
So do you do it one-on-one, Tyler, or is it like one person can coach 3 or 4 different people?
Yeah, one person can coach 3 or 4 different people, but that would be the point person for that specific location.
Okay.
So if we don't have a coach now, like how do you find the first one who can start mentoring 3 to 4 people who could then become the next coaches?
Are you asking me that?
Sure.
Say it one more time.
So how do you find that first person, right? Because I'm sure a lot of us were really just a one-person team. And so how do you find another person who can be a coach outside of just you? Where do you start?
Everyone outside of Angela's in like a regular church environment, correct? Steven, you're not, right?
Right. I mean, yes, correct.
Okay. So that's where I would start, would be figuring out which of your current church people have any interest whatsoever in, first lost people would be a good place to start. And then any interest in doing online stuff. So the first guy that I reached out to was a guy named Ty, who does some work in marketing. So I knew that he had like a little bit of knowledge of online stuff, but he just had this passion for pastoral care. And so now he leads our team that does this felt needs-based ministry. But he was really the first coach. And then from there, we together set up a infrastructure to like continue to develop coaches.
Nice. Is there anything else that you see in that first section, the content-based attendance? Do you want to move to section 2?
I can tell you just one more thing about that one-on-one. We've experimented with one-on-one messenger mentors, is what we call them. So we do have a very small, so we have 13,000 something people, a very, very small handful of people that have wanted to do one-on-one mentoring through Messenger. But we are experimenting with that. It seems that most groups trend towards commonality of situations. So whether it's parents, or it's you have a chronic illness, or you've had a death in your family, or you're a working mom, or things like that, where people will group together because they have something in common. That's why women's Bible study is so popular. So those are the things that we're testing. And I was trying to find the Outrate, the website that does it really well. It's just, I'm forgetting it. I'll find it and I'll put it in the notes. But there is a group, and Stephen, I think you and I might have even talked about this. But anyways, I'll find it and I'll put it in the notes.
Okay.
I think on the blog, most of these are structural, like overall vision pieces. But I think number 4 is really interesting for how we could possibly utilize the amount of time opening up for pastors online. So I know 2 years ago, we moved to a teaching team model. So myself and 2 other guys are sharing the load, which leaves a lot of weekends open without prep. So I personally, when I read this, my mind immediately went to how can we utilize that those off weeks for preachers to create content based specifically for the online campus. Has anybody ever done anything like that before? Do you think that would be even useful? I guess would be a good question.
I think it would, depending on the type of content it is. Like, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking like so if I'm preaching one weekend, then Randy, one of our other pastors, what if he did the online service for the weekend? And so we made a specific online campus only video. So instead of showing our weekend service, we just had content made specifically for them. I don't know if that's doable or not, but if the trend is to have more voices with higher quality, that could be an option.
Yeah. I know I'm seeing in the churches that we have live streaming, I see them doing like intros and outros, and they'll come in when things are happening in the service in the sanctuary, so that's not the thing that's being broadcast. They'll almost have like a host who comes and talks about the announcements that are pertinent to church online, and then they'll go back into the service once the activity in the sanctuary is done that's not necessarily pertinent. Is that kind of along what you're thinking?
Maybe, yeah, except it could be it could be different voices each time. It wouldn't necessarily have to be the same person each time. So it might be nice for the online campus to interact with the senior pastor on a weekend that he's not preaching, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, what are some other types of content that we can do that way? I've always thought it would be really, really interesting if you free up, if everyone is taking a weekend and say maybe you do one weekend a month, you could almost then, the person whose off week it is, they could do maybe a 5-minute kind of follow-up to what their thoughts were that week. And then you have a little bit of a different message. And you just post a 5 minutes midweek to your group too.
Yeah, good. It's like Monday morning pastor or something.
Right.
The last point, number 6 on that blog, is your politics will alienate the very people you're trying to reach. So the only reason I want to bring this up is because at the conference, I think I said in 3 workshops where someone made some kind of comment about how we have an opportunity with this upcoming election to really voice into that as the church. And then Carrie Newhoff here basically says, don't do that. I really wanted to know what your guys' opinion is on that.
Can you repeat what Carrie Newhoff said? I missed that part. I was glancing at the blog.
Your politics will alienate the very people you are trying to reach.
I actually think this is a little bit to go back to the content, and because I'm not involved in it, like, get this phrase, a traditional online church. I hesitate to
2020,
say,
right?
Yeah, I hate to say, I hesitate to say much at all on this call just because of that. But in that way, I think, I mean, like the strength of social media, the whole point is that it's social. So if we are simply broadcasting content, that is quite irrelevant to the platform itself.
Agreed.
Broadcasting content on social media is very similar to broadcasting on the radio. It's broadcast media. And so the whole point is engagement. So to me, I think social media is a win when it comes to comparing it to content-based ministry of some form, because we can actually engage with people. And you, in fact, don't have an audience at all if they're not engaging to some extent, liking, following, sharing, or something. But so I think social media can actually be a benefit in that aspect. With respect to the politics issue, I think social media actually makes it worse and makes it harder, because it's not just about what someone thinks from the stage and what they say from the stage and whether or not your people wear red hats to church. It's not like that. Now online, it's literally about anyone that you remotely consider a leader, small group leader, prayer leader, whatever. And everyone can go to their page and see what they have posted, what they have shared for the past 10 years. So the ability of people to write us off based on our politics or our worldview is multiplied by 1,000 times. And something that someone tweeted years ago and forgot to delete can completely derail their influence with particular people. So I think it's super relevant. So in that way, I think social media makes things, it multiplies the potential danger of dealing with politics. And so I think I would be careful about, I would not say it the same way that Neuhoff says it. However he communicated it, like, your politics will prevent you from reaching the people you're trying to reach. I don't think that's accurate. I think it will prevent you from reaching some people, because your politics will help you reach some people and it will repel other people, because whatever your politics are, there are invariably people who vote the same way and have the same worldview that still need Jesus. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So like I'm in Oklahoma, in the reddest county, in the reddest state in the US. And there are so if you have churches here that are hardcore on politics, and I'm talking past voter guides and everything else, like the fact that they're doing that, it helps them reach some people. I mean, there are lots of country boy, redneck Oklahomans that need Jesus now, but it also repels others. So I don't think that it's as easy as what he mentions. I think it's more complex. We just need to be aware of it.
Sure.
But,
I love what he says at the end, though. He talks about how, what if in 2020, what if it was not about an election, but what if it was about a year where the gospel advances? So imagine a year where love surges, hope gets fulfilled. We can disagree, but be agreeable. We focus on things that unite us, what divides us. But then he quotes Tim Keller and says, in a divided culture, Christians should be the help and the hope and not the hate. And I think that if we focus, I think this election season is going to be really hard. I live in Indiana, which is the southern Indiana. We live in like a blue collar town where very similar, Stephen, like same type of person would be living here. And that's all any of our people post about online, it seems like. Right. But if we can somehow be that hope in that environment, I think it'll go a long way for our people.
Yeah, I think when I read this, it's more about don't talk about politics online, especially as Church Online. We're here to share the love of God and not talk about our politics. And they really are very different things, right? The love of God, it goes back to kind of this quote, right? It's hope, it's help. You can share those things and completely avoid the partisan conversation. And people get to know you and they might hear those things, but what you're trying to share online and what the face of who you are as a church, the face of your church is not the politics, it's hope and love. So how do you do those things online without bringing in the other? I don't know if that's really that hard.
It's not that hard if it's not that hard for you. Like, people who talk about politics all the time, they do think that it's connected to their faith. So
Yeah.
I agree with everything you've said. But the fact that we have division is because many or most people don't agree with it. And it's conscious or unconscious.
I know.
It's so.
To that point, like Billy Joe from down the street may not think that way. And so I still want to be able to reach Billy Joe, but I don't want to start a fight on Facebook.
Yeah.
And if you have a lot of Billy Joes in your church, you're unlikely to also have a lot of the LGBT couples in your church from the same community. And I think that goes for the same for online.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, a church can't, we can't reach everybody. I mean, the church as a whole can reach everybody, but an individual church, is it possible for them to reach everybody? Man, I don't know.
That's tough. And to go back to your point about what's being said from the pulpit is so much different than what we can represent online. Like I absolutely can have control over what I say or what any of the other teaching team says. But like when we post one thing online and it becomes a political debate, I have no control over that whatsoever.
Oh, it's out.
Yeah.
It's out. It's gone. And the person that you would never put on stage, the person that doesn't serve, the person that doesn't give, but they're they follow your Facebook page and they comment on stuff and they're part of your Facebook group, that person, they have just as big of a voice or bigger than anyone in the church that's, that really should have the influence. So that's part of why I think online is so important. It's like, there are going to be conversations online with or without us. We should be part of the conversation.
It's going to be a really interesting year in 2020.
I agree. Yeah.
For that specific reason, I think.
Yeah.
So I guess my next question would be, how are you handling that? Because I imagine that we're all going to start seeing comments on things we post. What's your policy? Do you delete things? Do you hide things? Do you take conversation offline? Do you have them in public? Like, what are you guys doing?
We do an old-fashioned shootout down on the town square.
Sounds fun. Can I watch at sunset?
Yes.
So I'm sorry, please.
Oh, we've just been trying to move them to a one-on-one conversation, which is super not fun, by the way. Like, that is not fun at all. So that's all we got.
Just a quick note, because most of my work is like, with international efforts and different countries and stuff. So like imagine a scenario where you target a certain geographical area because you are really targeting certain, socio-demographic of people, right? Psychographic of people, like, from other worldviews, not Western, not whatever. And so you target a particular area, let's say the Middle East, and then you have this group with a lot of people who are seeking and asking spiritual questions. But because you've targeted geographically, you also get a group with a bunch of expats or oil workers. So let's say oil workers who live in the Middle East, but they're working for American countries. And overwhelmingly among Middle Eastern peoples, and it's like, you don't want to have, if you want to reach people, you don't have political conversations. Like and so what happens is, then you have like a particular person who's maybe Western, who's in this particular group, and you're trying to slow walk people to Jesus. And then you have someone make some political statements that deeply offends someone's existence. What I do is I kick them out of the group, I block them and ban them, because I'd rather reach people with Jesus. So, but that's very culturally unique and culturally centric. But it's like there's this lack of awareness that everything I think and everything I say is going to could potentially impact someone's eternity. And so if they're really that way internationally, I just block them and ban them. It's way harder in my local context with the church that I actually physically attend. So anyway, I'm going to mute myself now because I've said enough words on this. Someone else's turn. Let's hear from Tommy Prater or Vince Walker. Tell us what you think, guys.
All right. So we don't allow political conversations to occur on either our Facebook stream or our CHOP stream. Part of it is just the tone that we set with our hosts. A lot of it is redirecting and one-on-one conversations. If somebody begins to go down that path, then they get muted and or banned. But we want to respect their views, but at the same time, we're pretty well 50-50 divided. And you can say something that's going to just energize 50% of the audience, going to alienate the other 50% pretty quickly. So we just stay away from those conversations. There's so many more important conversations to talk about. Let's talk about the message. Let's talk about the worship songs. Let's talk about what Christ is doing in your life. Come join our online life group. We've got all of those things to talk about. And the last thing we need to talk about is whether it was the right thing to do this or to do that politically. So we just stay away from the conversation. It's not that we're ignoring the conversation. It's just not the right forum for it. Not the right forum for it.
So you do ban someone if they continually try to do that?
We just don't have that happen much, because I think part of it is we set a tone where that's not what we talk about, and we don't encourage that kind of dialogue. So when it has come up, and it's been very infrequent, we acknowledge the people, we welcome them for being there, and we ask them to stay on topic. And on topic is not political. Now, I'm not saying that works in every environment, but at least in ours it does.
We have a social media, guidelines document for all of our staff, and I'm just glancing through some of it, but the main gist of it is to have those hard conversations in person or one-on-one rather than posting about them, because there's so many nuances, so many things. It's not that we're forbidden from talking about them, but you're talking to such a broad audience on social media, and so the idea is to take those conversations offline. We are supposed to have influence. We are supposed to work with people, but not anyway, there's a looks like 11 different points on our social media guidelines, but a lot of things that Jennifer was saying, I will see people as Jesus sees them, wounded, broken, fallen, and respond as Jesus would, out of love, kindness, gentleness. I'll not respond out of anger, hate, or fear to any campaign. I'll use social media to strengthen community both inside and outside the church. As it goes on, though, it gets more. I will not post. I will avoid posting online about hard conversations that should happen face-to-face. I will avoid social media and online content that leads to temptation. I will not use social media to debate or argue controversial topics such as sex, gender identity, politics, materialism, or divisive theology, but rather seek to discuss these topics in person or privately with love and gentleness. And each of these has a scripture paired with it, just the motivation behind it, But I like the guideline in terms of and even from the pulpit or from our online ministry, from my own online ministry over the years, I've avoided those a number of those topics. I can't avoid some of them because they relate to my testimony. They relate to what I came out of and how God's worked in my life. So I do share that from a personal experience standpoint, but I try to take those conversations in one-on-one with people. Otherwise, they heat up really fast. Lots of people pile on the pile.
Yeah. Okay, Tommy, Owen, you guys have been quiet. What's on your church online mind?
Can everyone hear me? Because I tried to talk a little bit earlier, and then I got all flustered trying to figure out the microphone, and so then I got behind, and then
we hear you and see you.
You sound great.
That's great. I would start to ask a question, and then Tyler would start talking, and then I realized that something is wrong here, especially after the second time. But
I can hear you perfectly now.
Great. One of the questions that I have, and I posted about, I don't know if you guys have this data or if you have any sort of insight, but we're seeing we've started to keep track of the peak number of people in the chat. So you obviously can't keep track of total numbers of people who enter the chat room. Otherwise, you'd be trying to manage all these usernames, and it's impossible. So we keep track of peak numbers. And we're somewhere between 12 and 15% of people who, at any one time out of our total number, that peak is 10 to 12% of our total. So I don't know if anyone has any metrics on that, but that's something that we're looking into and seeing if that's high, low, kind of what the norm is. We just have no clue.
I'll kind of say that's about where we're at. I think is about between the 12 and 15%. About 4 years ago, I heard if you held 10%, that was average. We've been seeing, and we've in the last 2 months, 3 months maybe, ours has gone up. But I think part of that has been a little bit more intentionality behind our chat host. Actually engaging a lot more versus just, hey, welcome, good morning, but engaging everybody in the chat room. It just feel like there's a higher flux of people coming in, and then that number actually stays there. Because I've seen it to where it'll go up, and then about halfway through service, the people in the chat room may drop off. But they've been holding throughout the service, even until the very end. For us anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think 10 to 15% sounds about right for us. On different platforms, different services. If we have like 84 people watching on Facebook in one service, there'll be 8 to 10 to 12, 15 people chatting.
Yeah. Okay.
And it scales onto the CHOP and the other different platforms. That sounds right. So, it sounds similar.
Sure. Yeah, that's hopeful.
Yeah. Okay, well, we have 5 minutes left. So when we do these, I figure once a month is probably about right. And I like this kind of Thursday, first or second Thursday of the month. It seems to be a good slow day for most people. Does that work for everyone still?
Yes.
Yeah, it's still good.
Okay. And then are there any topics that you want us to kind of hit? And I can always bring people in who have experience in those areas to talk and answer questions too. So if there's anything you think of, feel free to shoot me a message.
Sure.
And if you want, if there's anything you think of now, I can write them down too.
Maybe about, I'm kind of interested in this because we're getting ready to start some stuff online. Well, really for the whole ministry, but I'm looking at it for online is engagement throughout the week.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people I've talked to, they're either using a Discord server, a Facebook group, Slack, some type of service like that gives them a chat room throughout the week that they can just stay connected and have community, build that community. I'm just curious what others have done that's successful versus hey, this didn't work and here's why.
Yeah.
For us, we're launching a Rocket Chat server, and the biggest reason for that one is it integrates with our church management system. We can create our channels based on groups inside our church management system, from what I'm understanding.
So you have like one for each small group, so all the small group people could talk, or
correct,
all the
and they're
volunteers.
private, right? And those are like private channels, so you wouldn't be able to get in those unless you were part of that group.
Oh, that's really cool.
What's your church management software?
Rock RMS.
The Rock. And so this is called, that's what we're using. We just switched to it though. What's the?
It's Rocket Chat. So if you're part of the Rock community, that's what they use.
Rocket
is Rocket Chat for, it's very similar to Slack. It's just, you can run your own server, and so forth. I won't get technical, but.
Great. Thanks. I didn't know.
And that plugin just came out with recently for Rock. There was a lot of effort behind that.
Okay.
Yeah. I think one of the other things that would be really cool is, I know there's always conversation about how do you create these online relationships, and I think, Steve, this is what you're getting at, is how do you take online relationships and move them into face-to-face relationships as well. And it's not just for me, when I'm trying to solve this problem, it's not how do I get people face-to-face into my physical church, it's how do they have face-to-face connections that are built around a faith, like built around a Christian community. And so it might be, for me, it's like small groups. That's kind of what I'm working on, is how do you get people to build small groups around them so they have a faith community, even if they're not connected to a physical church. That's one for me. And I think, Stephen, is that kind of what you're thinking too?
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. I could imagine in your environment, because everyone is so distant, it's really hard to say everyone come to our location, right? It's how do you build community around where you are? Yeah. Okay. It is noon, and I don't want to keep it. Well, it's noon my time. It's the top of the hour, so I don't want to keep everybody, but I will put the recording out. I've got some notes in the side, so I'll grab those as well. And then I'll see if I can find a few people maybe for next time who can come and talk about one or two topics. And so we've got 2 or 3 people we can ask questions to, or just hear how they're doing it. And I'll try and find some differing, here's how we've implemented it. And we'll rotate.
Great. Thanks so much, Jennifer.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank all of you.
Great seeing you.
Thank you.
God bless.
You too.
Thanks for organizing, Jennifer.
Yeah, it's
Nice.
fun. See you guys later.
Bye.